Hey everybody, welcome back to another great episode of Optica, Reflective Faith and Latinidad. And today we're having a little bit of a different background. Hope you enjoy it. From time to time we like to change scenery to keep you connected. Want to thank everybody who sent us emails and texts and messages on either our podcast or our YouTube page at Pastor Salguero. Keep staying connected to Optica. And today I want to talk a little bit about servant leadership. Really, I want to talk about authority and service. So if you're ready to take some notes and journey with us and have this great conversation about authority and leadership. And you might ask me, Pastor Gabe, why are you talking about authority and leadership and service? Authority, leadership, and service. I think it's because the tension is hard to resolve. I'll say that again. The tension is hard to resolve between authority and service, especially in the church, because rightfully so, we tell everyone who works at the church or in volunteer organizations that they're called to service. You might remember in the 90s, there were dozens and dozens and dozens of books about servant leadership. And the question I think many people were asking is, where's the accent? Is it on servant or is it on leader? Is he or she a servant or a leader? And what happens when you're called to be both? When you're called to be both a servant and a leader, or a leader who expresses service? I have to confess something to you. I've been binge watching The Chosen. Binge watching it. I mean, like popcorn, some refreshments, and just watching episode after episode. And I really like the way Dallas Jenkins navigates Jesus' authority, how he holds the disciples accountable with his humility and his service. And if I'm honest, perhaps like you, I have to admit that that's not easy. When do you exert authority? And authority is not just power. It's from the Greek exousia. Authority means leveraging your influence and your power in a way that leads. Leveraging your influence and your power in a way that leads or shepherds people. And so the Jesus character in The Chosen, you see that he realizes, he recognizes, he affirms, he's comfortable with his authority. But somehow that doesn't obfuscate or overpower his real servant's heart. And the problem is, or the challenge in this tension is, you work at a church, you're a leader, you're a director, you're a senior pastor, you're an associate pastor, whatever level of leadership. People expect, rightfully so, that you have the heart of a servant. But what happens when you have to make decisions? What happens when you have to hold people accountable? And somehow people think, wrongly I think, that authority and service are a contradiction. Now listen closely. You can exert your authority without losing a servant's heart. I'll say that again. You can exert your authority without losing a servant's heart. Conversely, you can be a servant without surrendering your authority. You can be a servant without surrendering your authority. And so there's a tension. We affirm it, we acknowledge it. But that's not enough. It's not enough to say there's a tension between people seeing you as a servant and people seeing you as an authority or as a leader. The question is, how do you resolve it? Well, first, intentions matter. I'll say that again. Intentions matter. When you have authority, the why of why you do things is important. The why behind what you do is important. And so when you make a decision, if you're doing it to impress, if you're doing it to overpower, if you're doing it to oppress, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons. The why of what you do is important. Why you exert authority, why you make certain decisions. If you do it to overpower people, to impress, to show people how much power and influence you have, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. But if you make a decision because it's what's best for the organization, it's what's best for the people and the families that you serve. And sometimes, let's be frank, you have to make tough decisions. You have to hold people accountable. You have to tell people you're doing it the wrong way. Jesus did it. When Peter tried to deviate him from his mission, that's called mission drift, when you deviate from your mission, Jesus says to Peter, "Get thee behind me, Satan." Now, let's be honest. Doesn't sound too humble to tell a man, "Get thee behind me, Satan." Or when Jesus confronted the abuse and the hypocrisy of the Pharisees, and he says, "Wait a minute, you're telling people to live a certain way, but you're not living up to it." And so the why of why you do it. Is it contributing to the health and mission of the people and the community you serve, the organization you serve? The how you execute your authority. Is it top down? Is it impositional or invitational? I'll say that again. Is it impositional or is it invitational? Are you inviting people into a journey to make decisions together, to do life together? You have to make decisions. Part of leadership is making decisions, easy ones and tough ones. But the how you do it, do people feel respected? Is people's opinion heard? Even if you disagree and make a decision against them, do people feel heard and respected? So it's not just why. Do you do it for the benefit and the well-being of the people and communities and organizations you serve, how you exert authority? But the how. Are people invited in? Do people feel respected? Is it a leadership that shows that people matter, even when the decisions are difficult? And so there are a lot of people that in the name of humility won't have the tough conversations. That's not leadership. But conversely, there are people who in the name of leadership won't serve. They think they're above it. They won't co-labor with people. They won't get their quote unquote hands dirty in the task of ministry or lifting up a business or sharing responsibility. You see, because the biggest way a leader, whoever he or she may be, can show that they have a servant's heart is by helping lift the burdens of the task before them. I'll say that again. The biggest way a leader can show that they have a servant's heart is by helping lift the burdens of the task they have before them. Questions like, how can I help you make this job more easily? How can I help you lift this burden? So it's not just asking things of people, it's modeling the behavior that you want to see. A servant leader doesn't just make requirements. A servant leader models the service he or she wants to see in the organization, in the church, in the family that they lead. This is important because one of the third challenges to servant leadership is detachment. I'll say that again. This third challenge to servant leadership is detachment. It's a me, the leader over here, them, the followers over there. You see, the power of the leadership of Jesus, his servant leadership model, is that it was incarnational. He moved into the neighborhood. He broke bread with the people. Much of the temptation of quote-unquote modern leadership is that we make these hierarchical distinctions, not just in function, because we do have distinction in functions, not just in function, but in value. We don't spend time with people. We won't eat with people. We won't enter into humane and human conversations about ordinary life with people. We're over here and they're over there. That's not servant leadership. That's a different type of model. That's hierarchical and often, regrettably, impositional leadership. Let me be honest. I don't have a perfect record on this. I struggle between the balance of making tough decisions and also being humble and accessible. I struggle between holding somebody accountable and saying, you're still part of the family. If this were easy, everybody would do it. But you're called to do it. You're the choir director. You're the small group leader. You're a small business leader who's starting up a new business, if we don't wrestle with this tension, and first and foremost admit it's a tension, but try to get that right balance, not perfect, but the right balance between holding people accountable, making tough decisions, strategizing, making executive decisions, but also working with people, co-laboring with people, being conversational, inviting them into a journey of maturity and leadership, what we will have is more and more broken relationships, more and more fractured organizations that claim the heart of Jesus, that claim the leadership style of Jesus. But if we dig down deep, the truth is we see people as transactional. What can they do to build my project? What can they do to enhance my vision? Rather than seeing this as a journey of family together, where you must lead, you don't abdicate your leadership, you recognize that you have a calling, that you have a direction, that you have a purpose, that you have a design. At the same time, when you invite people, you respect their opinions, their insights, their suggestions. Listen, there are tons of books on servant leadership that I could recommend to you. A cursory look on Google on servant leadership would show dozens of books and PowerPoints and lectures on servant leadership. But let's take this first step, answering these two questions. How do you execute your leadership? How do you treat people who are under your leadership? How do you treat people you've recruited or that you've hired or you've invited to journey with you as a team? That's the first question. How do you execute your leadership? Is it authoritarian or is it invitational? The second question is, you as a leader, do you really serve the people God has surrounded you with? Do you genuinely serve them? Do you care about their perspectives? Do you care about their opinions and their families? The servant leader doesn't just execute orders. He or she serves alongside, is a fellow sojourner in the projects God has given to them. My invitation here at Optica, as you write to us the next few weeks and days and you connect to our podcast or through our YouTube channel, is invite a whole new generation of people to re-examine how they're leading communities and how they're serving communities. And maybe, just maybe, we will create an antidote to narcissistic leadership that has afflicted so many and ruined so many initiatives. As always, I'm Pastor Gabe Salguero, thanking you for opening your eyes and seeing what God is doing.